Good afternoon. Live from outside the headquarters of CNBC, this is Climate Truth Today. I'm your host, Jesse Bacon from Environmental Action. For the last several weeks, more than 45,000 citizens and TV viewers of CNBC have been petitioning CNBC to improve their coverage of climate change. In turn, we've been met with scorn and derision from CNBC host Joe Kernan, who called us members of a cult and insisted there was no evidence that climate is changing as a result of human activity. This is simply untrue, and no news network, financial or otherwise, should broadcast known lies, especially in a manner that is rude and insulting to the millions of people whose lives, businesses, and investments are impacted by climate change every day. Having failed to receive a response from CNBC executives, and given that the only major change in climate coverage so far has been to broadcast a series of special stories on their 4 a.m. international business show, we and our allies at Forecast the Facts have been left no choice but to come here, right to the front steps of CNBC, and issue our own climate broadcast. For the next 30 minutes or so, we intend to show you climate news as CNBC should and could cover it. The folks here are volunteers or staff of nonprofit groups. We don't have international satellite networks or teams of financial analysts like CNBC does. But even with our limited resources, we intend to show you the next half hour why it's essential that CNBC and every other network cover climate change seriously and with the focus it deserves as a leading threat to humanity. We'll hear from survivors of Hurricane Sandy right here in Jersey. We'll hear from investment funds who are so convinced that climate change is a problem, they're unwilling to invest in any fossil fuels whatsoever. And we'll hear from concerned citizens who know that we can't start solving our climate change until our media starts reporting the truth. At the end of the program, we'll deliver your names to the CNBC offices just behind me. But before we do, let's first revisit some of the widely misleading coverage from CNBC these last few months. To walk us through the coverage, I'm joined by Melissa, a local volunteer with Forecast the Facts.
Hello.
Hey.
Hi.
I want to play you some clips, Melissa, from the CNBC coverage so far, and for the viewers at home as well.
When it comes to macroeconomics or climate change, I think trying to say that the scientific method is alive and well is a real stretch.
A balmy 24 degrees, which is lower than normal, but does indicate global warming.
Even when things are
Absolutely.
when they're down 20 degrees below normal, that somehow is different than the norm, so it must indicate global warming.
A lower than expected cloudy 69, also about 3 degrees below average, but also indicating that global warming is real.
A lot of scientists are now saying that rather than man-made industrial-related carbon emissions, that the real problem with the prior warming shift that may have occurred is sunspots or solar activity.
But they said that less ice means more water in the air.
And that this whole thing is just kind of a scam analysis.
And we know about weather over the years, over the millions and billions of years. We know that the median line is because of all this variability.
I'm just trying to make the point that CO2 is not a demon.
So it goes like this, and then we get to the middle. But now, anything that is not right on that middle average is now seen as, oh, something's happening.
Reynolds is going, what?
But I think the Great Rotation is a giant myth like climate change.
Cold weather,
That's
climate
right.
change. Warm weather, climate change. Snow, climate change. Drought, climate change. No snow, climate change. Any type of change in the climate, whether it's warm or cold, rain or drought, snow or no snow.
If you really believe in the man-made global warming carbon problem, which I do not.
They're scrambling. They are scrambling, the true believers.
Are you questioning what you've heard about global warming? Shit.
Global climate change.
Okay.
We haven't had any changes.
2012.
We haven't had changes in so many years.
No,
The whole
we have.
argument's been discredited, hasn't it?
No.
Honestly.
My community and my neighbors all throughout New Jersey had their lives impacted negatively from losing their homes to being without power, without gasoline. And that's why over 45,000 of us have signed, and they're here.
Yeah, can we get those on camera?
In these lovely umbrellas to signify that, the umbrella as a signifier of climate change and that it's real. And we're delivering them in these umbrellas to CNBC.
Melissa, thank you so much for being here today. It's 45,000 names against CNBC's coverage. And we've sent CNBC word about the work that Melissa and so many other climate activists are doing to get them to approve their coverage, and offered to help them bring on guests who are truly experts on this issue. But so far, no official response from CNBC. They did have one show that was willing to dedicate a week of special reports to climate change, but unfortunately, as I said, that was CNBC's International Business Show, which airs at 4 a.m. here on the East Coast. And what's worse, even that small gesture was ridiculed by Joe Kernan, one of the hosts you saw in our first set of clips of climate denial. So let's see that Joe Kernan clip now.
Set your alarm clock for 3 years from now, because you're not going to get a speech about natural gas and energy independence here. You got a climate change speech. That's what you got, and a big one.
And Joe, that's what I call foolishness. We're not dealing with the real problems. I mean, let's face climate change over time.
That's easy for you to say. You don't have a house, on the coast that's going to get, swept into, New York's going to be under 32 feet of water, Hoffmeister. You better get with the program.
Thank you, Joe. That's good advice.
You haven't read, you haven't read my Twitter feed, I'll tell you that much. Boy, am I don't know, there's some problem with orcas and shark fins, and there's a lot of things happening that the enviro-socialists are, it is a cult. It is a bona fide cult.
When you have a very large house on the coast, you don't want to see it submerged.
Right. Anyway.
Okay, so you can see they're not really getting the message yet over at CNBC, and that's why we're here today. But hopefully our next guest can help us put this in a language that they can understand, the language of investment. Our next guest is Aaron Gray from Green Century Capital Management. It's an investment business that's so concerned that global warming is real and a problem, they actually offer a mutual fund that contains no investments in fossil fuels. And we'll just be a moment while we get Aaron on the line. So I want to thank everyone for being here today. While we wait for Aaron, it's been, you really see how this impacts people and the lengths that they're willing to go to speak out on this issue against the very powerful interests of denial, as represented by Joe Kernan, the host of CNBC. And so that's why part of our message today is that climate change is bad for business. It's a bad investment. And we're going to have Aaron talk to you about some good investments and what would really be an investment in our planet and people. So we'll be on in a moment with her. So please stay tuned, everyone. Thanks, everyone. We have hundreds of people watching us across the country. And now we got Aaron on the line. Hey, Aaron. This is Jesse. Thank you so much for being here.
Well, climate change matters to investors because of the potential risks it may add to portfolios. The extreme weather events that we've been seeing.
You can plan for retirement or long-term savings without factoring global warming into your plans?
Not very well. Bill McKibben had a great quote saying, "It does not make sense to invest my retirement money in a company whose business plan means that there won't be an earth to retire on." And we couldn't agree more. The extreme weather events are already here. The climate change models are proving to be more conservative than what's actually happening on the ground. So the rational response is to incorporate these factors into planning for your future.
Yeah, that's
and part of that.
Mm-hmm. Go ahead.
Yeah, and part of that's looking at what your investments are supporting and determining the best path to building a green economy. And for us, that means in the energy sector, considering alternatives to investing in big oil and gas companies, and then focusing instead on energy efficiency and conservation companies, which are really reaping large savings in terms of operating buildings more efficiently and providing cleaner transportation options.
Gotcha. And can you still make money doing all that without investing in fossil fuels?
You can. The Green Century Balance Fund has been fossil fuel free for over 8 years, and it earned 14% for the past year ending June 30th. And then the fund's long-term 5-year and 10-year track records are both over 5% as well. And the fund also performs in line with its peer group of other moderate allocation funds. So there's really no need to have to give up performance in order to be able to invest green.
Great. Well, where can people go if they're looking for real climate-friendly investment news like we're not getting currently on CNBC? Where can they go to get more information?
Well, in terms of investing specifically, there are great resources available. As I mentioned, the Green Century Balance Fund is one of only a few widely diversified but still fossil fuel-free mutual funds in the country. So you can learn more about it and the Green Century Equity Fund at our website, which is www.greencentury.com. And then there's also an industry trade association for responsible and sustainable investing that has good information at their website. It's the Social Investment Forum at ussif.org. And specifically in their education center of their website, they have information about fossil fuel divestment and reinvestment options. So I encourage you to check those out.
Erin, thank you so much. This has been really informative. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. Take care.
All right. So now we've seen that people want CNBC to cover climate change, that they're worried about the impact of global warming on their lives, and also that it makes good financial sense to invest in a way that respects climate science and the facts of global warming. But we still haven't talked about the real human cost of business as usual. Because when Joe Kernan and the other CNBC hosts deny that global warming is real, they're not just expressing their opinion. They're encouraging markets and investors, politicians, and viewers, anyone who takes them seriously, to go on doing nothing about this problem. And doing nothing, we can tell, is not an option. So to get the personal stories of what climate change has really cost people, we're going to be hearing from two people who lived through Hurricane Sandy. The first one we went to speak with earlier today at her home in New Jersey. And we recorded this interview then. So what can you share with us about your experience on Hurricane Sandy of that day?
Well, 48 hours prior to Hurricane Sandy, we were knocking on doors and asking residents to leave. We were trying to evacuate the area. A lot of people were apprehensive because during Hurricane Irene, there was minimal damage, but there was still a sufficient enough amount of damage, and it cost people hundreds of thousands of dollars that they didn't get back. So a lot of people stayed. We were marking down their names and their addresses and how many people were staying in the house. And as the storm hit, we were getting the calls in and marking them off the list. I was at the firehouse cooking for all the firemen, the EMS, and the police that were out in the storm. And the stories they were coming back and telling you are things you would never even be able to imagine. And we were all like a big knit family trying to take care of one another. Socks became a very top priority, staying dry and staying warm because they were out in the water. They were, going around the clock 24 hours a day, and I was just feeding them.
You mentioned it, but do you want to talk a little bit more about the economic impact on people, both Irene and Sandy?
In this area, we're middle to lower class income. Most of us are renters in Keansburg. I myself am a renter, and FEMA doesn't recognize renters. They only recognize first-time homeowners, like if it's your primary home. And if you are a renter, you get less assistance and you have a lot of kickback because it's your landlord's responsibility to fix your place. And then the landlord's saying, leave. The other issue is there's a lot of people who are families that were struggling prior to the storm, so now their problems are just exasperated, and they were already on food stamps or they were already on welfare, and now they're not eligible for any additional assistance. A lot of people lost their vehicles because they stayed during the storm, which meant that now they're using public transportation or don't have any transportation at all. And the main thing is just trying to get back up on your feet when you didn't have resources prior. And now you're down one, they keep saying. It's like they're struggling even harder than they were before.
Yeah. Can you repeat what you said earlier about how many people were needing emergency food assistance before and after, roughly?
There's about the St. Mark's Church, the Center for Community Renewal, served about 125 to 150 people a month. Last month in August, we served 1,013 people. out of our food pantry that runs 2 days a week for 1 hour.
And my last question is just, what do you wish the media was reporting both before and after Sandy, especially in terms of the economics of it, the economic impact?
I really wish there was more awareness that the storm may have passed and things may be rebuilt in certain areas, but there are still people suffering every day. There are people struggling to just get by with a meal on their table, and it's to the point where an area like Keansburg was not acknowledged because they can just leave, but this is their home, this is our community, this is where their roots are, and this is where their comfort level is, so they can't just pack up and leave.
Yeah, and then my last question is, what do you see the future under climate change as far as hurricanes and extreme weather?
It's scary as hell, and it's going to happen again. I mean, that's the honest truth. We know it's going to happen. We are trying to be as prepared as possible. Our berms have not been repaired from Sandy, and if another hurricane hits, we're going to have worse damage than we already do, and we have damage that hasn't even been addressed. Pretty honest.
Yeah, no, that's what we want to hear. That's why we're doing Climate Truth.
But
so
I mean, that's the truth. I mean, it's honest. I mean, it's scary. And when we have a normal rain, like today, you can come, and when it's raining, our streets will be flooded. And it's like, what do you do with that? I drove a Volkswagen Beetle. I now have a 30-year-old pickup truck because I was going to ruin my car by living here. Plus, I haul 20,000 pounds of food a week, but that's my inside secret.
And that was some real climate truth from Alyssa. We're fortunate also to be joined today by another New Jersey resident, John Passante from Bergen County. John, let me ask you, what do you feel like is the responsibility of a news outlet like CNBC to this problem?
CNBC, like all media organizations, has a responsibility to inform the public. And recently, they've gone so far as to misinform the public, and that's unacceptable.
And if they were telling the public the truth, what would they be reporting about climate change?
These are the facts. Carbon dioxide, methane, and ozone levels are increasing. Temperatures are increasing. Extinction rates are increasing. Desertification is increasing. Droughts, wildfires, and heat waves are intensifying. Storms are becoming more frequent and more violent. Now more than ever, we need media outlets such as NBC to report on climate change and to call attention to our government's failure to address climate change.
John, thank you so much for being here. And there you have it, folks. In 30 minutes or so, with no budget and only the internet as our broadcasting network, we've covered more of the real facts of climate change than this major international cable network just behind me. We've heard the stories of concerned citizens who want real facts and data and truth in their news. We've heard from investment professionals who know that we must factor climate change into our business decisions if we're to have any hope of a safe economy or a safe environment. And we've heard the tragic stories of people whose lives are torn apart by climate change because the people in media and people in power are simply not doing enough. But that will not be our problem today, because right now, even as we conclude our Climate Truth broadcast, we're going to march to CNBC and deliver these 45,000 signatures, colorfully and attractively displayed on umbrellas, to mimic the NBC parent company's logo. We're going to deliver all these names and demand answers from CNBC. And stay tuned, because in the next few weeks, our partners at Media Matters will be for America will be releasing a new report on how CNBC's climate coverage has changed, if at all. For Climate Truth, I'm Jesse Bacon. On behalf of Environmental Action, Forecast the Facts, and the entire planet, thanks for watching and taking action.
Same thing in all of them?
Yeah, but you can get a sense of where they're from, and also we had people identify as...
Will you commit to covering climate change?
I will commit to reading these, and we always appreciate the feedback. We love viewer feedback.
And then, do you live in New Jersey?
I do not.
Do you live in New York? Or?
New York City.
So you were impacted by Hurricane Sandy?
I was, in fact.
We need to make sure we don't get more hurricanes.
We're against hurricanes, no question about it.
That's good. We
Okay.
got to do everything we can.
To
We have
be
important truth.
Yeah.
It's an important responsibility.
Did you hear about this petition that's going on now? They've got 100,000 signatures.
CNBC? I'm with CNBC.
He's with CNBC. He's here to meet us.
Yeah.
Everything all right?
Yep. Everything's good. Yeah. Yes, I've seen a bunch of the petitions.
But no, from now on, the names of the hurricanes should not be like Adele and Dennis and so forth.
Well, I don't know.
They should be. There's a commission that designs these names, and they said that they should be named after the politicians who deny climate change.
Oh, a fitting tribute.
Yeah.
Hurricane Bane.
I don't know who names the hurricanes. You guys
there's a committee that.
Yeah, NOAA does.
NOAA does.
Yeah.
So we won't call it Hurricane NOAA then.
Yeah. So now it's going to be Hurricane John Boehner and
whoever decides to
Hurricane
name it.
Michelle
Cool.
Bachmann.
Well, thank you for coming out, and we really hope you take these viewers seriously. Your ad revenue for your shows comes from viewers like these.
Excellent. Well, we appreciate the feedback.
Great.
And I look forward to reading them.
Great.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.